In the previous panels we had looked at the dual aspect of a tzara'at that manifested itself in a building. A situation brought about by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as per Vayikra 14:34. V'natati nega tzara, I, God says, shall bring about a nega tzara that will afflict a building. According to the Zohar, this act of HaKadosh Baruch reflected the omek hara of the situation. Rashi and Midrashic sources, however, maintain that this reflected the abundance of good emanating from HaKadosh Baruch. It will be this tension that we shall be looking at, as the Rebbe in the Sikha maintains that the situation that applied to the nega tzarat of the building also applied to the nega tzarat that afflicted the body. In the previous panels we had looked at the omek hara aspects, citing two textual sources, one from the Kabbalah, the Sefer Yetzirah, the other from Rashi's commentary to the requirement that the Metzorah must leave the camp and remain in absolute isolation, even from other individuals similarly afflicted. I shall now turn to the Riboy Hatov side of the equation, but before doing so, a slight digression that will put, on the surface at least, a rather absurd concept into some context, and that is the need for an explanation as to how a somewhat terrifying disease in its day could be a reflection of God's magnanimous chesed. By its very nature, religion promotes and is dependent upon the concept of a God. Most religions impose demands upon their followers, some in the area of faith and belief in the existence of a God, others in a requirement of loving and caring for other human beings. In Yehadut, we have the Taryag mitzvot, the word mitzvah with a tzadik vav shoreh, to instruct, to command. Hence, mitzvah translates as a commandment, but can also be linked to a tzadik vav taf shoresh, which describes the act of joining, of connecting, and hence the concept of a mitzvah is an act in which there is a joining between HaKadosh Baruch and Bnei Israel, and a reciprocation between the two entities. Judaism of today reflects the wide variety of form and expression. For lack of a better word, it has evolved, splintered, sub-splintered, as each group and subgroup struggles to define itself as it moves away from its host. This process began in the mid to late 1700s. By the mid-1800s, Orthodox Judaism came under the serious threat of extinction. It was left to Shimshon Raphael Hirsch to lead the battle against the inroads that Reform Judaism had made in Western Europe, and in his defense of his version of Judaism maintained that Orthodox Judaism does not know any varieties of Judaism. It does not recognize Mosaic Judaism or Prophetic Judaism, which was the battle cry of the Reform movement. It doesn't even recognize Rabbinic Judaism, nor Orthodox Judaism, nor liberal Judaism. It only knows of Judaism or non-Judaism, which had been the situation up until the Age of Enlightenment. In fact, the term Orthodox was not coined by Jews committed to the Taryag mitzvot. The word Orthodox had a connotation of old, backward, and was used by the, at the time, progressive Jews as a derogatory term to describe those Jews who refused to move with the times. Much like the term Haredi is used today in the context of people who are still living in the Middle Ages. Despite the predictions of doom and gloom, Orthodox Judaism did not die, and although it doesn't have the numbers that the conservative and reform have, it nevertheless remains the driving force from an ideological perspective for those two splinter groups. Reform has come a long way from 1885, when Reform rabbis of America proclaimed that we hold all such Mosaic and rabbinical laws as that regulate diet, priestly purity and dress to be altogether foreign to our present mental and spiritual state. They failed to impress the modern Jew with a spirit of priestly holiness, and hence they followed the line of the early Christians when they parted from the Tanaic Judaism of the day in rejecting as non-binding majority of the Taryag mitzvot. Success, however, creates its own set of problems, and Orthodox today has become pretty much a free-for-all, as the original structures begin splintering and further splintering into subgroups, all claiming to speak in the name of Orthodox Judaism. Much of it is identity politics, catering to large segments of the Jewishly identified population who wish to self-define themselves as Orthodox, but in many cases beyond the bar and bat mitzvah and a semblance of kosher food in the home and the practice of a half Shabbat, etc., have a minimal commitment to the fulfillment of Taryag mitzvot and halachic Judaism. Three main groups reflecting three major ideological positions exist, all committed to halachic Judaism. The major differences lie in the level and degree they wish to allow the outside influences to penetrate and dictate their worldview, and they are the Hasidic branch with multiple subgroups, the Yeshivish branch, referred to generally as the Black Hatters, also with a multiplicity of subgroups, and thirdly the centrist groups, self-defined after much debate as modern orthodoxy. As with all centrist groups, religious or otherwise, there's bound to be a left-leaning and a right-leaning position. In terms of modern orthodoxy, there is the right wing that is actively committed to halachic Judaism, and hence my preference is to reactivate the term Frum Orthodox when referring to those who are committed to halachic Judaism. The clothing that they wear and even ideological differences regarding the acceptance of secular society values are small issues relative to the commonality that they each have with the other groups.